There's an evil presence lurking in your writing nook. No, it's not the pile of half-finished manuscripts on the corner of your desk. The presence is far more devious. It doesn't shout, it whispers. And it doesn't destroy your work outright. It just convinces you to do it.
Get rid of it now. It's horrible.
Worst of all, most writers don't even realize when they're under its spell. What is this sinister force? Self-doubt.
I'm here to convince you of how awful your writing is.
The self-doubt monster is real, and if you let it, it will sabotage all of your creative dreams. Today, I'm going to show you how to kick this monster out of your writing nook for good. As a bonus, I'm going to share the one thing you must do whenever self-doubt shows up if you want to succeed as a writer. I wasted years battling self-doubt, and for much of that time, I didn't even know it. I wanted to be a writer, but deep down, I didn't think that I could be. So even though I kept writing, all the time I was thinking, this probably isn't gonna work. For many years, I hesitated to even submit any of my work. Do you know how long it took me to go from writing my first novel to actually getting my first publishing contract? Over a decade. Over 10 years of writing in secret and not really going anywhere, mainly because I let self-doubt stop me. I've since learned that I wasn't alone in this struggle. I wish I knew that before, but it wasn't until I started interviewing other writers on my website writingandwellness.com that I began to hear this story from almost all of them. That's when I started to research this devious monster, and I learned so much about it, so much so that I ended up including a whole section on how to overcome self-doubt in my award-winning book, Overwhelmed Writer Rescue. I now know how much self-doubt can mess up your writing process, and I also know how you can defeat it, or at least get it to sit back and be quiet for a while. It doesn't matter how much experience or how much talent you have, this thing knows how to mess with your mind. It's really good at it. And I think it helps to think of it as a monster or as a virus or something like that, because far too often in our lives, self-doubt is like this ethereal thing that most of us don't identify. In fact, it's so convincing that we think it's our mind. We think it's us saying, this isn't very good. And so we believe it. It really helps to separate it. That's usually the first step you want to take, is to say, I need to name this self-doubt thing. I need to call it a monster, or call it a virus, or call it a sinister presence, or something that helps me to separate myself from this evil, negative thing that keeps popping up in my brain. Because once you do that, you can become more aware of what this thing is doing to you. Self-doubt is extremely convincing. It knows just how to talk to you. But if you take this first step and separate it out and say, okay, this isn't me. This isn't me talking. This is this virus or this sinister presence or this monster. This is this thing in my brain, and I need to fight against it if I want to succeed. Self-doubt is devious, but it's very similar among all of us. The way that it acts and the lies that it tells are very similar. One of the common lies it likes to tell is, you're not a real writer. Okay, well, so we believe that because we think it's coming from our own brain. But if you tear that apart a little bit and you think about it, you're not a real writer. Well, what beginner is? That's like telling a person who's 15 years old and just got their driver's permit, you're not a real driver. Well, of course, I'm just getting started. But this is what self-doubt does. It tells you these devious statements, these devious lies, and it makes you believe it. Part of the reason this is such an easy lie to believe is because we writers kind of think that inside anyway. Often we will think there must be some magical moment when finally we will be a real writer. The fairy godmother of writers will come along and hit us on the head and say, voila, you are a real writer. So it's very easy for self-doubt to weave this lie into your brain because we kind of tend to think that anyway. When the truth is that the minute we decide to write, we are on the path to becoming a master writer, but we're already a writer. If you're already writing and you're doing it regularly, you're already a writer. But self-doubt is going to try to make you disbelieve that. Everything you write is terrible. Okay, well, here's another one that's really devious because it's really easy to believe. Often we writers think that what we put down isn't that good. And usually self-doubt will show up and tell you this when you're struggling with something. So let's say you're in the middle of a novel and you reach that place that's always hard and you're thinking, this is not going well, I'm stuck and this isn't any good and I probably should just give it up because what I'm writing here is awful. Self-doubt shows up and says, oh yeah, you're a terrible writer. Everything you put down is horrible. And it will use any time you're struggling to try to insert this idea into your head, insert this lie into your head. And we believe it. Usually because at that moment we're struggling and we're vulnerable, but also because we don't think at that time about any of the good comments we may have gotten on our writing or about any of the triumphs that we've had or any of the writing sessions that went really well. We're not thinking of those at that moment. So it's like, yeah, okay, I must be a terrible writer. 1 point for self-doubt. So you see how sneaky this thing is. And that's why I encourage you to identify it as something sinister in your life. It is sneaky and it is destructive and it tells you lies and it messes you up and slows down your progress. Let me tell you about the mindset shift that finally helped me to get past this self-doubt monster's devious ways so that I could finally move forward in my writing career. So I have to warn you, this mindset shift is going to sound easy. And it is in a way, but you have to realize that it goes against everything that we're wired to do. And here's why that is. And this is probably going to surprise you a little bit. You might actually disbelieve me here for a little bit, but hear me out. The truth is that self-doubt is comfortable. You're like, what? You just told me how it's lying to me and it's stopping my progress and is keeping me from reaching my dreams. Yeah, it's all those things, but it's also comfortable. We're used to it. Most of us have heard some form of this whispering monster in our heads for most of our lives. Even if it wasn't related to writing, it might have been related to other things we were trying to do. But it feels comfortable also because it allows us to play it safe. It allows us to stay small. It allows us to avoid the sting of rejection or to never have to experience the humiliation that may come with a bad review. In this way, self-doubt can kind of make it feel like it's protecting us. It's protecting us from all these scary things in the outside world and particularly in the publishing industry. And you can see why this kind of works because these things are frightening. It does take courage to write. It does take a lot of courage to put your work out there. It does take resilience to be able to get that first bad review or to get that rejection and then go back and try again. Self-doubt in a way feels like it's protecting you from that because it's keeping you from expanding. It's keeping you from growing. It's keeping you from putting yourself out there. So we listen to it and we accept its word as truth and we stay stuck, like I did for over a decade. So what finally helped me break free? Here it is. I stopped believing what self-doubt was telling me and I started questioning it. So this is a two-part process. Of course, the first thing you got to do is become aware of it and create some sort of a name for it in your head. Once you do that, you stop believing it and you start questioning it. That's the shift. So instead of just accepting whatever my brain was throwing at me, I started stepping back and saying, is this really true? And is this helpful? That's the biggest thing we have to ask ourselves. So next, I'm going to tell you the exact steps to take to be able to make this mindset shift in your writing life. Okay, so here we go. Step number 1, catch self-doubt in the act. This is probably the most important part. Although I might say that again, but this is a really important step. We have to become more aware of what self-doubt is whispering in our ear or in the back of our minds. When we hear those thoughts, oh, you're just not good enough, or oh, this story is crap and you should just throw it away and start over. We have to recognize that that's not the truth, that's not me talking, that's self-doubt talking. The instant you can make that separation, you are on the road to breaking free of self-doubt's grip. Pay attention to the little voice that pipes up when you put your hands on the keyboard and says, this isn't going to be very good. Oh, that's not me, that's self-doubt. Catch it in the act. Don't let it just run in the background like bad elevator music, okay? Ask yourself, wait a minute, what was that thought? What was it saying? And where was that coming from? Oh, I think that's self-doubt right there. The next thing you need to do, step number 2, ask yourself if this thought is helping you or slowing you down. That's going to also tell you whether this is self-doubt or something else. Self-doubt is always negative, and it's always seeking to tear you down. It's never going to try to build you up. So if you've got a thought in your mind that comes up that's trying to tear you down, or trying to keep you from writing, or trying to make you abandon your story, that's self-doubt. That's another way that you can identify it. Is this thought trying to help me? Or is it trying to hurt me? And if it's trying to hurt you, then that's self-doubt and you need to get rid of it. You don't want this in your life. And what's going to happen is you're going to say, well, they're actually, though, it's kind of right. No, you can't allow that in your life if you want to succeed. You absolutely must identify it so that you can eradicate it, because negative thoughts are only going to slow you down. Third step, do not succumb to its power. You realize that now is the time to fight. You do not simply lay down and believe what self-doubt says and say, okay, well, I guess I won't write today because I'm not up to it, or whatever self-doubt is telling you. You realize it's time to put on your armor, grab your sword, and fight this thing. Because if you don't, it's going to win. It's going to beat you, like it did me for so long. You can't let it do that. You're going to have to up your mental energy so that you can battle this thing. And finally, what you do is you build yourself up. And how you do this is you simply talk to yourself as you would to a good friend. This story is no good, is what self-doubt might say. You recognize it, it's trying to hurt you, you armor up and you say, look at how much you've gotten done already. You're doing just fine, keep going. You somehow build yourself up so that you have the strength to keep going. Another example, self-doubt says, you know, you're not a real writer. Okay, you recognize it, you realize it's trying to hurt you, you armor up and you say, I'm getting better every day. I am learning, I am growing, I am practicing, and I'm getting better. So sit down and be quiet. Okay, so I've just given you a 4-step process to how you can keep self-doubt from slowing you down. Now I'm going to give you the bonus step, and this is the crucial step that you have to take. This is the one that will determine whether you break free from self-doubt and actually become the writer you want to become or not. This is where many writers falter. Becoming aware of self-doubt is a good first step. Realizing that it's trying to hurt you is a great second step. Armoring up is what you need to do. Building yourself up is also going to help. But if you don't follow through with this last bonus step, all that is not going to be enough. This last step is simple and it's powerful, but it's absolutely crucial. The only way to truly beat self-doubt, take the very action that it's trying to stop you from taking. This is the only thing that self-doubt can't stand. The moment that you move forward despite what it's saying and do exactly what it's telling you not to do, you've defeated it. You've proved it wrong. Why does self-doubt wither in the face of action? Because action dismantles its arguments. Self-doubt thrives in hesitation and in playing on your fear. But the moment you take action, you shift from all this thinking and rumination that self-doubt is having you doing to actually doing something. Suddenly self-doubt has nothing left to stand on. It told you that you couldn't do this, and yet you did. The more you act in defiance of it, the weaker it's going to get, until eventually it's just going to fade into background noise that you can more easily ignore. So here's some examples of how you can fight back by taking action. Self-doubt says you shouldn't submit that piece, it's not ready. You say, watch me, and you hit send. Self-doubt says, you know, you're not ready to invest in your writing. That conference is going to cost too much. You say, yeah, well, I'm making reservations. Self-doubt says you're never going to finish this book. You say, challenge accepted, and you go write chapter 11. This is what the great artist Van Gogh meant when he said this quote, which I absolutely love. If you hear a voice within you saying you cannot paint, then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced. So here's your mission. Identify one way self-doubt is holding you back right now. And if you don't know, become more aware of your inner thoughts. When it does come up, go through the 4-step process. Catch it in the act. Ask yourself if it's helping you or hurting you. Armor up, build yourself up, and finally, take the exact action it's telling you that you can't do. If you want more strategies on how to beat self-doubt, there's a whole section on this in my award-winning book, Overwhelmed Writer Rescue. Plus, if you want more motivation, writing tips, and the occasional pep talk from me, be sure to sign up for my newsletter at writingandwellness.com. Self-doubt is sneaky, it's persistent. If you've struggled with it, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Please share those. And for now, keep fighting, armor up, build yourself up, and take action. I'll see you next time.